Welcome back, everyone. The Mad Lions are now 3-2 in the LEC, and I have Mac with me to talk about the game. Very controlled game for you guys. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How did you approach this one? How did you identify SK's weaknesses here?
We felt that SK were a team that relied a lot on kind of having these big 5-man wombo combos. So basically we just drafted as much mobility as possible, which is why you have like Bard, LeBlanc, Lee Sin, Gangplank, who's quite hard to engage on, and we just worked a lot on kind of pushing side lanes and map rotations this week.
All right, well, you seem to have identified your style already, and with a rookie team, being a rookie coach, I want to know, how has it been with these new functions now? What has been the most challenging part for you until
In terms of the kind of technical side of it, I don't think it's been that challenging. I think the biggest challenge for us as a team has been quite unique because I've never had a team that talks this much. All of the players are super willing to give feedback, always really opinionated, and have very strong opinions on a lot of things. And they have really clear strengths as well. So that leads to sometimes us having very long reviews. So it's actually, whereas in previous teams, I've had to do a lot of work on getting people to open up and getting people to talk and give each other feedback. In this team, it's been a bit the opposite.
Do you feel like you're improving faster then? Because I was saying, okay, you are a rookie team, but it's working well, but you made this face saying that you don't agree, so maybe there's something there.
I think it's going pretty well. This week, we worked a lot on communication. So I think previously, we've been improving really fast on a kind of macro level, and this week we realized that we had some issues with the way that we were planning ahead, that we were living a bit too much in the moment sometimes, and that led to us kind of YOLOing some fights. Like I think some of the fights, for example, against G2 or some of the fights against XL could have been won if we had maintained our composure a bit more and planned ahead a bit more. So that's something we worked on a lot this week, which I think they showcased really well today. They were really disciplined and really composed today, so that's really nice.
And I really appreciate you bringing up the communication and you working with Jake, because I had an interview with him earlier today. You're going to see this one tomorrow, guys. But I want to know, how are you guys working together? Because I know you used to be a teacher, he's head of performance, so how is this working between the two of you?
We have 3 people involved on that front. I mean, 4 even with Peter included. We have a sports psychologist called Martina, who works with a lot of the Mad Lions teams, as well as Jake, who is our performance manager. Honestly, we all just share ideas a lot on how we can improve communication. So there's a lot of listening and a lot of giving feedback. And we've been doing a lot on the sports psychology side of things this week, which I think the players have taken quite well to as well. As I said, we did a lot of work on communication, and that was both communication inside and outside of the game in terms of the way we give feedback and the way we speak to each other, which I think has helped.
Well, thank you for explaining all this. And one feedback you can give to your guys is the fact that Kaiser got player of the game here.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
Congratulations for him. Thank you very much for the interview, and back to you guys.
Thank you, Laure. You love to see it. A Bard winning player of the game. Nothing, truly nothing better than that.
Yeah, okay, you and your Bard, get out of here.
All right, let's move on to our next game. Misfits Gaming might have been the worst team in week 1. Definitely were the worst team in week 1. But after an undefeated week 2, the Bunnies are on the attack. They're bouncing back. They're looking better.
Okay, calm down. It's been 4 games, so calm down. It's not like everything's changed for the squad. It's still just 2 losses, 2 wins.
But it looks so good if you look at last week. We got the Wombo combo. If you saw mechanics, you're watching this one for the second, maybe the 3rd time. But it's such a beautiful thing to watch. The coordination between Dan and Febiven. I'm impressed, because I don't know why you're not willing to jump on the Misfits hype train.
So here's the thing. I think hype train's the wrong word. Jump on the case that Misfits improved over the week. Yes, I will give them that. But these still were not perfectly clean games coming through from the Misfits squad. So I still think they have a long way to go before I'm really going to be convinced that they could be, a playoffs contender eventually.
But for me, when I look at this team, step-by-step improvement. And I think one of the first factors of that is their drafting. It feels like they've identified some weaknesses, and they're doing what they can to fix them. You've got Dan consistently on something that can carry in the late game in the top lane in week 2. That was the set as well as the GP. No more of this Nocturne, Orianna crap.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think Nocturne's that hard to execute. I just think he got ganked a billion times. It's not like having a press R comp is very hard to pull off.
If you get ganked on Gangplank 100 times, you're still a Gangplank ult. You're still reliable. I feel like the other big half of this is the bottom side of the map. You see the Aphelios, Tom Kench, denyk, and Bvoy. We don't know much about their communication, but I feel like clear goal there when you're playing the Tom Kench and the Braum instead of crazy stuff like the Rakan, the Nautilus, the Leona, the engaged champs. You sit back, you protect protect Bvoy. That's your job. It's simple. It's straightforward. I like what Misfits are doing.
Okay, I will give it to you again. It got a little bit better, but let's not try to spin things here.
What do I have to do to sell you?
went from being down 24 CS at 15 to being down 12 in week 2.
Also went from like 18.9% in damage share to 30% in damage share. So yeah,
yes,
laning.
the Aphelios will do that for you.
What did he play in week 1, Ender? It's not like 80 carries just don't do damage. He's obviously performing better. So here's my question. With all this, what do I need to do to sell you on the Misfits train?
I need more consistency out of Misfits. As I said before, these are just 4 games here, so you're not going to magically convince me that this team has improved leaps and bounds over the course of 7 days or 5 days if you take in just the week of practice that they had. I need to see more games. I need to see cleaner games because even in their wins against Excel, that wasn't a very clean game. That was messy for a long part of it, so I need much more tape on this team proving that they do know how to make the right decisions all the time.
I don't know why you're so hard to sell, man. It took 4 games for us to buy Schalke a body bag, but you're not willing to give them an olive branch after 2? All right, fine. Well, for me, Febiven has also been another player that's been stepping up. This is a guy that if you've been watching over the past few years, you might have mixed opinions. 2015 Febiven, great. Every year after that, pretty downhill. Now, I feel like we might be seeing a resurgence of top performance Febiven on the back of his Kiana performance and his LeBlanc as well.
All right, Drakos, you've got me on this one. I do think Febiven had a very strong week 2, and I'll even give you a little bit more, because it wasn't just his individual performance, but I think Misfits actually played pretty well as a team around his lane. You look at how they controlled vision around the mid lane, how they were able to bring jungle and support to try to impact that center of the map and get Febiven ahead. That was a very good look for this squad. But Drakos, there's one person you have not mentioned, and that's Razork, because this guy was just stumbling over himself all the way through. And when I talk about consistency, I need to see something good out of this guy, out of this rookie.
Yeah, it's not a good look when we're talking about consistency and we have 2 back-to-back highlight plays here of a man fumbling mechanically.
It's the top right, by the way. That's
and you gotta respect the effort. But those are some criminally bad highlight reels. So that's fair. If you're holding out because you're not certain about Razork, I get that. Let me counter with Dan GP. Triple kill near the Infernal. Once again, back to the big setup. I think this Misfits team, I feel like they're making playoffs. Maybe it's a bit early to be saying that, but I do feel like they have been looking much better.
That is a bold call. Now, with the way that everything is just so muddy at the bottom of the table right now and even towards the middle, I don't think 4, 5, 6 are really cemented in my mind for playoffs, but I'm still not quite there on the Misfits. I want to see them come out with a strong showing today.
All right, we'll see if they can prove me correct today or if Ender's skepticism is justified, because it's time to find out if Misfits truly are back as they face off against Schalke 04 and their new jungler.
Thank you very much, Drakos. We are about to find out very quickly. Schalke has elected to change junglers for today's game. Lurox will be in place of Gilius. Now, very quickly, he and Schalke's ERL team are 6-0 in the Prime League. That is the German and the DACH region's European Regional League. And again, it's another one of these rookies that's coming up through the ERL system. He's left a team that was undefeated to join a team that is winless. So can he be the difference maker today?
And let's just be very clear. They were running with a 6-man roster. The jungle was the position that they had access to change out. Obviously, when you're starting 0-4, you need to change anything. And even if it's not like them thinking or saying that Gilius is the problem, it is at least getting a different voice, a different mentality in the team, and seeing if you can reset something from there. So we'll see if Schalke can find the hard reset, because this has been a very scattered team to what I think people were expecting.
Absolutely the case. When you look at the players on the Schalke squad, the amount of experience that they have to draw from, you know, when you look at the fact that Odoamne is there, Febiven is there, you were anticipating higher levels of performance. Now, there's 0-4 today, potentially 0-5 if anyone follows social media accounts of the respective teams. Misfits had a little bit of a banger of a meme. Let's see if they can back up what they were spewing.
So the first thing that I really want to highlight as we head into draft phase is the fact that Schalke are one of our teams that have drafted on both blue and red side. We've talked about how some teams have only been on one side selection for their first 4 games, and from both sides, Schalke banned Aphelios. Now, there are questions about Forgiven's champion pool. Aphelios is one of those champions that usually takes up one of those higher priority positions. So obviously, being hamstrung in draft, I need to make some of the assumptions or the leaps that he's not comfortable playing that champion. And again, it can hamstring you in draft phase.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And it is a statement that I think is as old as European League of Legends, Froskurinn.
They should ban Xayah.
All right, well, let's find out if they do. Gragas and Syndra around on phase 1 for Schalke, Soraka and Akali so far for Misfits. You see the coaches on stage deliberating right now, looking at the Misfits side. Let's find out what the last ban's going to be.
So obviously there is a high priority on things like the Xayah for Schalke. I don't know if it's high enough priority that they first pick it, but it could mean that on second rotation that you potentially see Misfits grab something here, or you would just expect that it's probably going to be a Xayah Rakan bot lane. Although with Jarvan, now Misfortune suddenly rockets up in priority because of how their ultimates work in tandem together, the Cataclysm for the setup for the bullet time.
And of course, Misfits Gaming, what do they prioritize on the other side? It's not going to be the Xayah Rakan that was available. Instead, Senna Lee.
And reminder that Senna completely slipped through in our game number 1. She hasn't really been seen a lot in the LCS outside of Cloud9's hand for Sven over there. She's almost completely absent in the LCK, so this is still Misfits Gaming putting priority on a champion that has fallen off a cliff globally, and there's some Misfortune that we were talking about. As soon as Jarvan is locked in, boom, Misfortune is just right there because of that setup.
Really good combination if they can layer it together. Going to be paired with the Nautilus, and we're anticipating down in the bottom lane there for Dreams. And now let's see how Misfits Gaming decide to respond. They've got themselves a potential bot lane support to lock in if they wanted to. And for the time being, hovering in mid lane. Of course, we got the duo and the jungler here for Schalke, which will allow Misfits to prioritize one of these solo lanes to ban out, and it will be the Braum.
I'd expect pinching the mid lane pool here because they have red side pick, or Misfits have red side pick, but Rumble's interesting. I guess Rumble makes sense because it also goes along with Misfortune Jarvan and Odoamne, known for his Rumble performances.
Hasn't necessarily lived up to them in recent weeks, to be fair. And of course, again, focusing on those solo laners. LeBlanc taken away from Schalke, and you would anticipate Misfits can do another one. So set, 2 games in a row, 2 times red side ban. Wonder if EU teams were also looking at that like high priority first pick options. Just one of the trends we get to track throughout the weekend.
Yeah, so there's the mid lane bans that I was expecting. The LeBlanc, the Cassiopeia. We already had Febi kind of flash the Azir. Things like Ryze are also still available for him. The Zoe has high priority in something like LCS, so if it is Azir, there's a potential for a Zoe out there. Abbedagge has been much more known for his assassins, his LeBlancs, his Yasuos, but with Jarvan, it's a bit of a scary situation to go for Yasuo here, whereas you normally see it in tandem with Gragas.
Okay, Gragas, of course, was banned away in the first rotation. It has been one of those really high priority picks here in EU. And now we get to see what do Misfits decide to lock in. What do they feel comfortable with to combo with their Lee Sin and their Senna? And of course, what options does Schalke have in return? Abbedagge and Odoamne want to see what they can do with Lurox, the new jungler coming into week 3 of the LEC. And it will be the timer ticking down as Diana is now once again locked in. So seeing this one a little bit more, that secret OP, not so secret anymore.
So already you have so much backline access with a Lee Sin and a Diana, and then also when you put the railgun on top of it with Senna, her reach there. So again, if Febiven has a better game than what we saw from SK previously, and he does pop back into that backline, try to blow someone up with a Lee Sin kick, and then Senna just finishes it by shooting straight across through them, and there's the Zoe that we touched on previously.
All right, so seeing a rising in popularity. What do we think here now about the composition, how it's shaping up? We've got some team fight power, we've got some pick power, but if anyone gets locked inside any CC from Nautilus or Jarvan, combo that with a paddle star, and that's tickets, GG. Mord as well to round it out. Okay, so what do you make now of the 5-man comp?
Well, it's the Mordekaiser that we've seen can act as a soft counter to the Braum when Braum puts up his shield for the Misfortune. I think it's not an every time situation, but we have seen that Mordekaiser grabs Braum, pulls him into the Thunderdome, and then there's no stand behind me. What is the wall called? Yeah,
that is it.
Yeah, to block the bullet time.
Unbreakable wall is actually that one.
Stand behind me is the W, the jump.
The thing is, I think you have to be careful with the Thunderdome, because to me the Thunderdome is going to be the Cataclysm with a bullet time on top of it, so it's going to be quite confusing. The Nether Realm, I prefer that if you're a Mortal Kombat fan.
Okay, yeah.
But we'll have to see.
We're not at Evo.
And then and the last selection now for Dan is going to be the Aatrox. It's one of the champions that we talked a little bit about coming into the week. So zoom out, look at both of these comps. Fair amount of dive getting in your face. If Misfits can stick to Schalke, they could be in trouble. And if Schalke can keep them at arm's length, maybe Misfits are in trouble. What do you think?
So one of the issues that I've had with some of Misfits drafting is I feel like they draft hard to execute compositions. Like, there's no big Wompo combo that you've seen like the SK Gamings rely on, and it's not that I don't think Misfits can do it, it's just the consistency of which they can. This is like a composition that in the hands of G2, you'd be like, this is going to be fun to watch, but there's so many moving pieces that really need to come together for Misfits to find a lot of success on this comp. So that's what I'm watching for.
Okay, so we want to judge it, but that's kind of been one of the underlying trends for this Misfits gaming team. When we were preparing and researching and discussing the players, Misfits are a team that have sort of a couple of key examples that show you they're still learning, they're still practicing, they're playing to develop and to grow. And I think one of the quotes you had, which I fell in love with, is they're not playing for today, they're playing for tomorrow. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think that's probably what a lot of people will apply to these newer squads, the Vitalities, the Mad Lions, the Misfits, that it is about that development and what you're going to measure there. So there's reasons to be excited for this Misfits squads, particularly with these young, unknown names.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do, Froskurinn, if you can, let's look for some examples of where Misfits are setting up a play, something that we consider like a playbook, and then see how much they've learned, see how much they can, or how well they execute the expected play.
So the analogy that I'm going to go with for Schalke versus Misfits at this point in their career is that Misfits, as their 5 members, if each member is a finger, are trying to make a fist. That's what they're trying to do. They want to make a fist, and then they just want to hit you with it as hard as possible.
Okay.
But the issue is that they're still learning. So sometimes the thumb gets on inside, they punch you, they break their thumb, they break their hand. Sometimes it doesn't quite fold, they take a swing and they miss. Schalke, also 5 players, 5 fingers, but they can't make a fist, and they don't want to. They just start poking eyes. They're not working together as a team. There's no form of unity that we've seen from them in the first 4 games. And it's just about individually, can forgive and gouge an eye out? Can Odoamne, like, I don't know, poke a side or something like that? And that's the big issue that I see with these teams.
And what we found is, no, not many of the individual players in Schalke can do anything as individuals, really. Despite the fact they don't get crushed, Schalke are one of the teams that are definitely up there when it comes to, I want to use the word like evenness, to put some like numbers in perspective. If you look at the numbers on the bottom of your screen, the percentage of time that Schalke spent with a relatively close gold amount is 57%. Then 33.9% of the time was the major deficit, which is obviously majority of the gold being in your opponent's hands. So they spend a lot of time being really, really close, and then nothing happens and the other team just wins. That's what's happened 4 games in a row for this squad of very experienced players.
And it feels like things are fine for kind of individual lanes, which is what you expect for Schalke. This is kind of like you must be this good to ride the LEC, because they're like the measurement. Like, if I can't beat this guy in lane, then I don't deserve to be a top-end team. But again, as soon as it gets to the teamwork element for Schalke, they just haven't found that synergy yet. So we'll see if this new jungle iteration can maybe inject some friendship into the squad.
All right, Lurox has officially met the you must be this good to ride LEC bar. And of course, we'll see what he can do. Starting to clear out top half of the jungle. Febiven going to make his way down, placing a ward similarly to what Abbedagge has done. And as it stands right now, Bvoy and denyk are pushing into Dreams and Forgiven.
So we don't get to talk about Bvoy. Drakos and Ender just kind of mentioned some of the stat issues and how there has been improvement from kind of the first week to the second week. I will say, though, that from like a drafting perspective, when you look at Misfits drafts, Bvoy and denyk are basically able to play anything. There are some teams, like when we talk about Schalke, who feel like they're really narrow, that they can only play a certain type of champion, and again, it hamstrings them in draft. Misfits don't have that problem. They can draft anything, but with great power comes great responsibility, yes. And that's why we sometimes have these issues where the compositions are really hard to execute, because just because you can play anything doesn't mean you necessarily should.
Correctimundo.
Venice had some strong words about Dan's top lane Nocturne. Was a week ago, if I recall correctly. This time around, the Aatrox into Mordekaiser a little bit more traditional, shall we say, and therefore reducing the expectation at least in that setup. But it's really going to be around this mid-game fights and how Misfits want to move around the map with this Senna, Braum, Lee Sin, Aatrox combination. On the other hand, like if Schalke can find themselves a good combo between Jarvan, Nautilus, and MF, that's just a really easy direction to follow.
I want to point out that what our observers just showed us is that Dan has set up a freeze. So Odoamne has to be very far forward in his lane. So Razork's going to take his Krugs, and then there's the potential that Odo can be ganked, which is why Odo is like terrified up there, and he's like standing near the bush, just like waiting to check for this Lee Sin to come flying out. And Lurox, I almost said Lurox, Lurox has now reset his position and could potentially head topside to cover, but now the wave is starting to push back for him.
Yeah, so now Dandan's going to be the one that'll be in a little bit of pressure as he gets grappled and pulled forwards. I was following Razork's positioning, but he's now moving to the chicken camp and is somewhat parallel with Lurox.
Curious if Dandan's going to take his back here. No, he's going to walk it in. Okay.
All right, this is a bold move. Cotton, let's see if it works out. Lurox not going to... I don't know if they'll get there quickly enough. Instead, he's going to be focusing on the Gromp. Just move into his own jungle.
He just swept his own... I'm talking about Jarvan here. Sorry, I'll use his name. Jarvan has actually just used the orb to sweep his own jungle, and it's because they had vision that Dandan moved down into the river. A very common ward is that one that's placed right on top of the Gromp in the blue buff. So you're going to start to see this maneuver from junglers a lot more, and then constantly checking places for that. And we'll see how it evolves for the team to pick more creative warding positions so they can get that information when they do get wave priority, placing wards deeper into the enemy jungle.
Okay, I like that. I'll keep my eyes open then on how often it gets spotted out as well as placed. Both top laners contesting again. Oh, Dandan actually didn't complete the recall. He started to channel it but held onto it for a while. Febiven uses Make It Rain, steps forward 37 to 43. Small CS advantage to Bvoy and denyk as they've been shoving into Febiven and Dreams' lane. And now Razork making his way towards the Schalke jungle. He will find Lurox if he continues north. Instead, it's just popping the blast cone, removing one of those opportunities or routes. And Lurox will drop the flag on Febiven's head to delay the back, just cause him a little bit of frustration.
Yeah, and I think the issue for Razork there was the fact that he was losing priority in his mid lane. Yeah, Febiven does have TP, but his mid laner wants to take the back, so there's no reason to go on a walkabout in the enemy jungle, especially when you've already set up, like you said, denying that blast cone for the Ocean Drake in here.
So, good timing here so far to start it off, but Schalke somewhat aware.
So
Lurox was already responding.
They feel really confident to do this because they have access to TP, and Schalke do not. Aatrox walked back to lane.
Oh, Lurox not going to be able to steal in his first game on the LEC. Razork picks it up, but the fight breaks out. Bvoy's in trouble, forced to flash defensively, goes inside the mist. Teleport now coming down. Razork will stay outside of the Make It Rain. Dreams gets tagged by a Winter's Bite, and he's about to get stunned. Has the ability to get caught. Dan is the man. Not going to find his target though, and unfortunately on the back end, it's Febiven that picks up the first kill. I really expected more from the Aatrox, but it is Febi that gets the kill.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate for Dandan that he doesn't pick up anything there, uses the TP cross, whereas now Odoamne is getting free experience, free gold just kind of funneled into him. But again, that was the difference maker of Dandan when he held the wave, when he built it up, when it crashed to Odo, he got to walk back to lane, he had the TP, and he opened up the space for Misfits to feel confident to pull the trigger on a first Ocean Drake. So great wave management there to allow his team to pick up a monster objective.
And do you think it's one of those situations where you can see what we talked about before the game? Misfits, a team that is learning, that is kind of learning the plays in the playbook and then trying to execute them as best they can.
Yeah, the idea, I think, was sound there, but now you have an Aatrox who is
20 CS down without TP.
Pretty far back down, so it's also the fact that Dandan, TP's on the top of this fight. Oh no, that's Febiven. Okay, I was like, ooh.
There's Dandan just south of Abbedagge.
I remember he came in from the bottom. I was like, wow, that's a big walkabout, but yep. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, not too bad. I literally thought Abbedagge and Lurox were going to get popped there, and unfortunately it didn't happen, so I was ramping up. But the man who did get the kill, Febiven 1-0-0 on that Diana. And just to quickly talk about some experience difference here, Febiven 233 LEC games all time. Contrast that, he may have more games than everyone else added together. I think if we include even some of the Schalke members, but this is somewhat what you expect of a very experienced player leading some hungry new rookies on the Misfits squad.
I will say Bvoy's number a little bit unfair there.
This is not LEC games, of course.
Okay, because Bvoy, of course, has some LPL games, and I think some minor region games in there as well.
Yeah, definitely the case. But I think that the main point being there are still a number of rookies, especially in the European scene. And of course, with Misfits, while they committed for that first Drake, which they secured, it is the Rift Herald that goes the way of Schalke 04, and I prefer seeing that. I prefer seeing what the Herald can unlock. And this 8.5 minute swap for Herald is more off, or becoming the norm more and more.
But it was a very different reason why it happened in this game versus the first game. Febiven has just gotten access to level 6, so when we saw Mad Lions go for the 8-minute Herald swap, it's because they felt really strong. They had the ultimates, they walked up there, they made the conscious choice that Herald is worth more than us, more to us than the Drake. Schalke swapped into it because things went dramatically wrong bot lane with the dragon fight. They lost a lot of key summoners. They didn't have time to kind of sit back into the 2v2. So to get tempo and momentum back into the game, they decided to be the first team to rotate towards the Herald and try to get a foot back into this early game.
Which is something that you want to be seeing more from Schalke. We need to see this team continue to figure out what happens next. We talked earlier about how in the laning phase, they don't really get obliterated, but as we get to the 15, 20, 25-minute mark, the threads start to unravel for Schalke when the fist needs to form and you need 5 units coming together to punch the enemy in the face. That's where they really start to struggle. So I want to see what they can do with the Herald and whether Lurox can be one of the guys that helps them find some direction.
Well, this composition that Schalke have put together should be pretty easy mode for that because, again, it relies on a lot of wombo combo and then just pressing R all together. So Trevor, they don't need to make a fist. They just all need to press R at the same time.
While looking at the same direction. Okay, now so they've reduced the complexity somewhat. Alternatively, Misfits have increased their complexity. So what does the next few moments look like? I can see Lurox, the Rift Herald, still inside his inventory. He's near the mid lane. Where would you like to see him use it? I know you mentioned you really like the 4th and 5th plates, but not many of those are available. Actually, none of them are available.
I think it's about who he wants to accelerate here. And they're actually giving a lot of free space to Febiven. It's Dreams who's constantly kind of cheating in towards the mid lane and giving Febiven access to like solo EXP and gold. Obviously, if you can springboard MF and kind of get her to her first 1 and 2 items, that ultimate means that much more.
Yeah, it does, especially Febiven right now. Got himself the Caulfield's Warhammer. Pretty much even on CS. Dan and Odo start trading a little after Odo was able to land the skill shots and pull him in. And you can see Lurox lingering just to the side.
They're going to use a bot.
Sleepy Trouble Bubble won't find a target, but this is a numbers advantage in favor of Schalke, and with the Infernal Drake spawning, they have priority in the pits.
Yeah, but Misfits are around here to fight. I think that's exactly what they're going to do. How will they execute?
We're going to find out. And he's going to step forward, holds onto the Fisher for now. Febiven's got the ability to dash forward. Won't be able to find it just yet. Schalke, they were looking for the fight. Press R! Press R! Press R! Find a target to do it. Not going to find it just yet. Febi, Sleepy, Trouble, Bubble. Schalke can't find the R buttons, and they are the ones that lose the dragon. They lose control of the pit, and now they're looking for the fight. Cataclysm still available, but they're holding on to the trigger. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's this coordination. We just don't know. The railgun comes down and nobody's died just yet. Sonic Wave, resonating strike. Odo goes, oh no, as he's taken out. The second kill for Misfits, make that 3. Abbedagge is the next target. The portal jump is not enough, and it's a double for Bvoy. Frost, you said they only had to press R. Where were the R's?
Okay, here's the issue though. They had Herald. Schalke didn't need to do this. They could have walked into the bot lane and placed the Herald and forced Misfits. If they didn't like the dragon fight, they could have been like, that's fine, we can at least trade for the tower. But they just they tunneled in so hard. I do want to point out denyk here, because I think this was quite a cute play. Had the stopwatch. The fact that Odo is like, me and you, Braum, let's go, let's dance. denyk just hard denies him with the stopwatch, then Odo's completely out of position, takes so much damage, and is the first person to drop there. But again, this wasn't a finger problem. This was the brain problem. You didn't have to play that out like that. There were so many other options before it came to this.
And unfortunately, none of those options were selected.
Did that Herald just die mid?
It did indeed. It was summoned while we were in the replay, just behind the mid turret. And as it was spawned, it ran straight into Febi's waiting arms, and he said, thank you for the extra gold. 1,500 gold up, Misfits. 2 Infernals, 2 Dragons to 0. 4 kills to nothing, and outside of losing the Herald, it has been a perfect game.
And And it's scary, though, because Misfits' composition really gets terrifying again when people like the Diana, when people like the Lee Sin have a lot of gold into their back. Because, again, it's about you blitz in back there, you find the quarterback, you put him in the ground, and then the railgun just comes across your entire team. And Misfits did that exactly the last time around, and now they've got more gold to continue to do that every single time we see these teams run into each other.
Yep, absolutely the case. Now, we will see a trade of ejectors here, as Bvoy and Razork will put some pressure on Odoamne. While that's going on, Dreams and Forgiven shoving the bottom lane, but I think advantage Misfits overall. They're getting a little bit more chip damage in multiple towers. And of course, denyk, the unbreakable. Oh wow, won't even able to catch the shot. Let's quickly talk a little bit about Misfits week 1 versus week 2. We're approaching the 15-minute mark. Goal difference in week 2 was plus 750. So we're a little higher than that right now. Majorly 22%. They went 2-0 last week. And they're starting the first 15 minutes of this game looking pretty comfortable, but it's not over yet.
Yes. Complimenting Misfits. But I do have to make this point, though, because we may not get another opportunity to compliment Schalke, because I really liked actually what they did there. One of the things that Senna really struggles with is her ability to push towers because of how slowly she takes them. So for Schalke to just recognize that they could trade cross-map and the fact that they have a real ADC in Misfortune and try to power through, that was great play. Now they need to reset and sprint towards this Herald to see if they can like maximize the play, not just like 30 seconds in the play, but like 2 minutes out. Like if they can interrupt this, which I don't know if they're gonna get there.
No, too slow to the play. Misfits able to get to the Herald, so the second one is secured by them. Extends the gold lead even more, and now all of a sudden, it's Misfits that have got that next acceleration tool in their toolkit to see which tower they want to focus down.
And now, tempo back in Misfits' hands.
Yep.
It was there for a small window for Schalke.
It really was. But isn't that kind of the case with Schalke as we go a little later into the game? You know, there's these moments that you see. 15 minutes in, they're down. The substitution with Lurox. Admittedly, it's not been about him at all, right? The two fights that have kind of happened have gone Misfits' way. And one of them started by Schalke, and the second one not really played out well by Schalke.
Well, they get another opportunity as the Drake will be spawning in a minute. So there's going to be some dancing until we funnel gold and start setting up over there. Although, as I say that, we're actually setting up all our vision on the top side of the map.
Where is the support in the mid lane? Teleport available for Febiven. He's up in the top lane. Dan making his way around.
This is what Misfits are doing is they're still setting up for the Drake, but obviously by prepping the top wave and pulling apart Zoe. They have the TP that they're playing with. You can see now denyk is moving in, placing all the vision, securing things like the crab. So yeah, they're playing topside, but it's simply because they have more cross-map potential with double TP.
Okay, so question now. Are Misfits in a position that Schalke were for the last one? That Misfits have the Herald. They're kind of setting up around the Drake. So
well, I think they're about to use the Herald.
Oh, there we go. Exactly. But again, the point I'm trying to make is, if we were to contrast both teams' decision-making in equatable like stages, do we prefer here what Misfits are doing?
Yeah. And it wasn't too much of a difference getting to use Herald. Oh no.
All right, now teleport's going to come in this time round from Febiven just outside the pit. Dredgeline won't find a target, but the Sleepy Trouble bubble could be gigantic. It's interrupted Razork. The Dragon will go the way of Schalke, but what about the ensuing fight? Forgiven with the great flash to get away from Febiven. It's a fight on multiple fronts. Dreams is already down. Lurox forced to run for his life. Abbedagge is being zoned out, and while Odoamne is in the Nether Realm, it simply will not be enough. Gets caught out by the Crescent Strike. Glacial Fissure comes down as well. The Pell's Cascade continues to tag him out. Sonic Wave won't find a target, and Razork stays alive a few seconds longer. 3 members down on the Schalke squad, and Dan's not done yet. The Infernal Chains come out, and Abbedagge is caught up. The Railgun comes down. Not going to find the damage just yet as Febi finally finds another. Forgiven goes golden. He was the man that dodged the first skill shot, but he cannot dodge the last. It's an ace for Misfits, and all Schalke got was a Cloud Drake.
Shout out to Bvoy there with a very nice use of the stopwatch to hold the tower aggro. Okay, so here's the thing. Yeah, they got the Cloud Dragon, but Schalke, they didn't have control over this. Even if they got this Drake, which I'm going to say that they were probably lucky to get, Misfits didn't care about the Dragon. They knew that they were going to win this fight, and they annihilated Schalke. Like, if I had to pick what has defined or what has ended the game for Schalke, it's this moment right here. Yeah, there's still some tape to play. Anything could happen. We're not playing on the high end, but this is probably where it happened. This is now 2 times back-to-back that Schalke just gets so tunnel focused on the Drake. Like, all they think about is the Drake, and it is leading them to such ruin. They need to reevaluate what these monster objectives, I don't know, like what Drake is sweet-talking them with, but it is not worth it.
Yeah. It's not worth your lives, boys. Bvoy tags it. Lost shot. And manages to tank it. Really good coordination from the Misfits squad. Multiple fights in a row. They chased down. They found their targets. 9 kills to 0. 4,000 gold up. Schalke 05 is on the verge right now as Misfits very, very clearly in charge of the game and dictating the pace.
You had a limit to that joke. That was the last one. That's your first one.
I need one more for the win moment.
Okay.
That's it. I promise until then I won't say it.
That's the only one you get.
Okay, thank you. That'll be second and last, I promise.
I do want to also then go back and compliment Misfits because, again, it was about like the setup, which that we didn't see from Schalke that you did see from Misfits, things like using the Herald when you're trying to set up the Drake. It meant that once Misfits won that team fight, that then they were then able to snowball and make it mean much more because their waves were in position. So they got the kills, they got chip damage onto a structure, they have complete control of the map, things like that.
And of course, a lot of that's like sort of decision-making and control. We talked a little earlier about the experience that Febiven's bringing to the team. I've spent the last few moments while there's no action going on, looking at the player cams on stage. Febiven talks a lot. Like, he's yelling and screaming, and we anticipated that he's one of the shot callers, and you have to expect that if he does have a guiding hand, it seems to be showing some dividends, at least in week 2 and week 3 here.
I mean, the assumption would always be that your veteran players would be a wealth of knowledge for teaching your new guys, and that if they get ahead, it just makes them that much more powerful and probably makes Misfits look that much more confident around the map, as they are just brute forcing through things.
And of course, it helps when you are playing against, you know, the 9th/10th place team at 0-4. Like, let's not forget that fact. But Schalke, they've now lost their 3rd tower. All outers are down. Misfits have done fairly well. They cross the 20-minute mark, pushing some deep vision into this western quadrant of Summoner's Rift. And with Baron open and available, now it's about pushing their waves and deciding when or if they want to play for that objective.
And so the options that you have for Schalke, again, if they are to kind of get a foot back into this game, is probably through, it's really rough. See if we can work this one. Probably through their side lane ability, like maybe the Mordekaiser, although I don't know the Mord versus Diana matchup very well. Like, if Mord runs into Diana, is he just going to get popped? Because if yes, then I don't really think that there's anything that they've got.
Definitely not, especially when you consider the item difference as well. Nash's Tooth, fully staggered Roa, into a Seeker's Arm Guard and a Pretty Mask. I mean, it goes, you know, more than half an item down. Razork got the Black Cleaver build on with Warrior Enchant on his Lee Sin.
There might be a window where once Forgiven finishes Infinity Edge that they feel really confident on 2-item spike for Misfortune, and then again just try to actually layer the Wombo combo. But again, I feel like that's it. Like, the window is so narrow for Schalke to find success back into this game, whereas if Misfits are just patient, I feel like they can just cruise control through this game.
Yeah, I get that. Man, what a difficult, like, contrast from Schalke in 2019 summer to Schalke 2020 spring. 0-4 looking likely to go 0-5. Substitution this week. We have to see where it's going to land. But it's a difficult, you know, start to the split. Not the one that the organization was hoping for. And conversely, Misfits went from being one of the worst teams in 2019 to at least like showing up with some rookies that show promise. I'm not going to oversell them right now, but the whole thing about this week that Frost, you and I were talking about was like adding clarity and definition to the middle of the pack, and this is definitely, well, 2 games under our belt getting close to, you know, giving us some of that clarity.
Zooming back into this map, it looks like nothing happened, but I do want to point it out. All of Schalke finally left the Drake. Again, the sweet nothings that she had been whispering to them, they ignored it. They knew it wasn't worth it. They actually ran towards Baron, and it was a good heads-up play by Misfits to pull Dan. I'll hold it, though. Febby.
He's going to be in a little bit of trouble.
Get ulted.
Flash is available to him. He's now going to be in a 1v1 and puts a lot of damage down onto Odo. Still got the flash available to him in terms of the damage. Here comes denyk and Bvoy. Febiven's going to stay alive just a few seconds longer. Manages to turn it back around. Febiven gets caught out by the bullet time, but just not enough to take him down. Now all of a sudden there's a stun onto Dreams. Dan comes in with a teleport. He manages to start the Infernal Chains. He's locked inside the Cataclysm. Abbedagge is trying to put some damage on the side, but the Paddle Star not going to find a target, and nobody goes down yet. Misfits are able to respond in time. The item advantage keeping them alive.
Yeah, and that was kind of one of the questions that we had answered of the Mord versus the Diana, if that was going to be a possibility for Schalke to look for out into a side lane in that matchup.
Yeah.
Didn't look great. Going back to the previous point, though, Dan checked the Baron. I know that seems like pretty far back, but something to watch for is that when teams go for that third, fourth Drake, technically it would be the fourth Drake, even though it wasn't the fourth one for them, teams will try to rush Baron. Misfits were aware of this. They had it warded, and they had their top laner come down and check for it. And again, if we're trying to track where development is for Misfits, how well the coaching is working on for Misfits, those are all great things to see from a very young squad.
Yeah, very nicely done. Taking a look at how this started, I mean, Febiven survived such a long time, but obviously being locked inside the realm of death with Odoamne helps a lot in this numbers disadvantage.
Yeah. Also had the stopwatch, used it immediately as he came out, dodged a ton of the CC, or the immediate CC coming out of it. And this fight is played so slow, and it looks like for a second that it might look good for Schalke, but they just don't have the itemization. I don't think they'd spent a long time before walking into this team fight. And unfortunately, it just kind of fizzles out into nothing. But another team fight. Sorry, Trev.
Sorry, I had to blow my nose. You just left me hanging.
I know, I was like, I froze. I was like, is this my moment? Do I get to be the play-by-play?
Well, we jump back into the game. And just before that replay popped up, next game, Fnatic versus XL. You guys do not want to miss the match introduction. There's two British organizations, and we happen to have Captain England himself, Machine here. He's got something special prepared. So make sure you tune in for that. Right now, though, Misfits, they pick up their fourth tower. They're pushing in this top half of the map. And look, there's a number of question mark pings from Schalke inside the Baron pit. Like, they're doing Baron. Should we check? Look at the vision. Oh, this is so scary for Schalke.
But they actually caught them at a good time because Misfits have reset.
Oh, yeah, they have. So they can contest the vision, which is good.
Here we go, though. Schalke fans. You have your tiny little window. The Essence Reaver has been built. The Infinity Edge is online. You need the ultimate layering of ours. But this is it. This is your... I guess this is Dan's moment.
Okay, where's he going to go? Who can he find? Come on, Infernal Chains. Come on, Infernal Chains. Use the Darkened Blade. Can he find the kill? That's one Darkened Blade. The chains comes down. Portal jump comes up. Railgun in the face. Flash forward. And that's already won with some support from Bvoy. Lurox forced to flash. Cataclysm's available to him. Razork comes forward. Dragon's Rage kick is available to him as well. The depth charge will be used in just a moment. And now all of a sudden that's a kickback. Finds a knock up into Lurox. Give that man some air miles because Lurox went flying. And it's a double kill for Febiven. There will be just one more kill onto Odo as they peel backwards for Baron.
Okay, that is all she wrote. That was kind of the one opportunity. Maybe they can turn a dream team fight for Schalke, but Misfits just slam the door on them. They'll now take the Baron and take even fuller control. What's the word here?
Yeah, I like that. Even fuller control.
Even fuller control.
I just want to watch how long Lurox's been flying, because he was caught by the knockback from Razork's Dragon Range, and then was pulled in by Diana. And literally could do nothing. No spells could be cast. I mean, if you look down the Misfits scoreboards, could you see more indication that this is a team? 109, 504, 406, 209, 1011. All of this is an unlucky 13 for Schalke 04. And Misfits are just purely outclassing them.
So let's take a look at the rubber band here as... perfectly timed.
Good job, observers. Oh, this is the kick. This is the kick. I wonder if they're going to give me a slow-mo. Can you give me a slow-mo? We'll find out. I'm literally just watching for the airtime right now.
Count?
All right, there you go. In the air, in the air, in the air, falling back, in the air. Can't even get the flag and drag. Oh! Welcome to the LEC Lurox. This is what it feels like. As Misfits with Baron, 10,000 gold up, are starting to move forward. I'm having fun today, Frost.
That was a good call.
Thank you.
Lucky number 30, or unlucky number 30.
Exactly.
I've just been so impressed.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying my best. It was just the one joke that I've got one more in the barrel for.
No? Okay.
One more in the barrel for. We'll see how it works out.
You're liking your numbers.
I am. I mean, you've got, numbers in names and stuff, so you have to play with it. But what do you make of Misfits? I mean...
They played great. Individually, as a team, been very impressed with their team play. It's been super clean, and we wanted development. I feel like you've had solid, clear trajectory, and I would say Drakos is probably feeling really confident in the suggestion that Misfits would make playoffs.
Okay, I think that's fair after 2.5 days of gameplay, right? And looking to tomorrow, Misfits will be playing Origin. Origin 3-1 right now. Misfits looking likely to be 3-2. And you have to anticipate, like, depending on how they look tomorrow against the OG squad, that'll be a little bit more of a better, like, judge of strength coming up against that squad. And this is, like, raising my expectations.
Had clean objective setup. They're now playing, or were playing, all 3 lanes. This will be the final team fight.
It will indeed. Febiven, 406 is coming in from behind. Razork takes a lot of damage, but he's put a lockdown onto Odoamne as well, and the Crescent Strike comes out. Febiven dashes all the way forward. It's denyk that gets the kill, followed by Razork and Dan. Once again, team play all the way around. The inhibitor falls, and Febiven and Odoamne are the last players standing. Misfits Gaming put on a clinic. Live up to the trash talk on social media. And Misfits Gaming ask Schalke to rename to 05. You said I was allowed one more. I gave you one more.
You did give me one more. That's now Misfits on a 3-game winning streak.
Exactly the case.
Their first undefeated week last week. They now come in and they just clean Schalke's clock.
I think the nicest thing that you helped me see and understand is the difference between what Misfits are doing, how they play the game, looking at some of like the setups and looking at the strategic decisions they're making, and just how it is a little bit more clear that you can see that this is a young team trying something complex and maybe hitting themselves a little bit when they do it, but they're trying it and they seem to be landing it a little more regularly against the weaker teams.
This is a really oversimplified kind of difference there, but I think really the story of these two teams was so clear when Schalke have access to Herald and they run into the Drake fight and they don't even think about trying to prep either mid or bot with the Herald. As soon as Misfits are put in that position, the Herald goes down. And yeah, they lost the Drake, but that was Schalke like trying to slip in and grab something that wasn't theirs to take, and Misfits made them pay for it heavily.
Absolutely the case. And the scoreboards for me are
The fact that everything happened together.
Everything is about the team. So picking your key player of the game, vote at LEC. Razork, Febiven, or Bvoy. Honestly, it's a difficult decision. I probably would go Febiven. I think his Diana was pretty clean, but at the end of the day, it was a team win. They put themselves in a position where the team could complement one another, and they delivered.
I think it was Razork and Febiven that kind of got the ball rolling, or the dominoes going for Misfits. I do think the Bvoy super clean on our Senna. I think there's a really big gap right now of kind of who feels confident playing Senna and who doesn't. And Bvoy is a player that I think makes Senna look really good, which is something that a lot of teams need right now.
Yeah, definitely the case. Well, look, Fnatic versus XL Esports, we are going full UK, and The Machine has planned something special for the occasion. I have no clue what Drakos and Ender are up to, but those uniforms are making me nervous. You don't want to miss the match intro straight after this.
Why do we have that?
is my creed. The boots that make me faster. The items that make me stronger. The potions that I drink. I get the best to be more powerful, so my champion rises to the top. But all this leveling up means nothing if I don't level up myself. It's the healthy potions I drink in real life that make me stronger. Because you can only rule the game when you realize you are your most important champion. To play like a pro, eat like a pro.
We have been tumbling around each other for quite a time.